Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Allison, and I'm a product owner with Branchspace. With me is my colleague Radu, the Director of Digital Solutions at Branchspace. We're also joined today as well by Rasmus Menke, Senior Product Director with Salesforce. I'd like to give just a quick overview of our agenda. I'll hand over to Rasmus shortly, who has some great numbers to share with you all in reference to what Salesforce is seeing from travel customers in this latest phase of the pandemic, as well as like a deep dive into how you can upgrade your digital experience with Commerce Cloud. Following that, I'll walk you through opportunities we see in the booking flow for optimizing your conversion rates with contextualization and personalization. And then Rowdy will take you through exactly how these ideal states are achieved. At the very end, we'll have some time for questions. So again, we're very excited to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Just a quick reminder of Zoom etiquette. If you can make sure that your mics are muted, that's great. That way we'll have it crystal clear. And if you need to slip out for any reason, please rest assured that you won't miss anything. We'll be sending around a recording following the webinar. Okay. Over to you, Rasmus.
Okay, super. Thank you. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Turn on my video too. Always the fun of using many different presentation tools here. So let's see if this works. Hopefully you can see my slides.
Yep.
Okay, that's super. I'm just going to move this. I have a couple of screens here. I'm going to move it over so it's not as fast way. Super. Yeah, so thank you. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what Salesforce Commerce Cloud can do in the travel industry. So if I can also progress. So a couple of things that I just want to highlight, a couple of numbers that we've kind of seen in the industry. And this is like data that's collected through Salesforce. We do like some surveys with our customers across the travel industry. Some of this is McKinsey numbers, but we're seeing like a massive growth in digital revenue as expected right now, like a 71% year-over-year growth in just digital revenue that's happening across the travel industry. I saw this report from McKinsey that says, I should have put a dollar sign on here, but it's more than $1 trillion lost in revenue last year in the tourist industry. I mean, this is of 10% of the worldwide GDP, right? It's across everything that happens in the tourist industry. But as things start changing and coming back, we also see that like 91% of travelers want to see the importance of doing more ethical trips, or they're also thinking a lot about experiences as much as they're thinking about just getting from A to B and enjoying that, but they're really also looking forward for experiences and a more kind of ethical kind of approach to traveling. And then an interesting stat around business travel is that even though that will recover, McKinsey still thinks that only 80% of all business travel will fully recover, which means that airlines have to think about catering a bit more to the leisure traveler and what their needs are. Also saw at the same time that a lot more leisure travelers also looking at flying on business class or first class, and must be very nice to do that, but they're also looking at the more kind of convenience way of traveling when they go on the road. So there will definitely be a recovery. I know personally, I can't wait to go on vacations and then be able to do that again, something that's been missed for a while. If we look at kind of what some of the trends we're seeing as well, and like how could a commerce application or solution really kind of help companies think through this, right? There's a lot of things that happen when you want to book a travel or an experience, and one is like simply just booking tickets. So coming in, finding the tickets from A to B, the dates, etc. Booking experiences on social. I think a lot of us go and use different social platforms to research and find kind of ideas and things that will help us drive new kind of experiences as a family, as a single person, as a group. You want to try to experience more when you go on a trip. It could be wine tasting, it could be a theme park, all kinds of fun personalized travel journeys as well, where I want something that's catering to my need, as somebody with a couple of kids. versus somebody else. They want to have catered, personalized experiences. And then the companies can use that with building loyalty programs to really kind of drive more commerce transactions. So if you have a loyalty program, like when I was flying quite a bit a few years ago, I had status with some of the airlines. Well, I would fly those airlines more frequently because of what the loyalty program did for me. Any kind of travel experience, you can try to build that loyalty in, whether it's the hotels, whether it's a group of experiences that goes together to kind of drive more loyalty around it. And then use subscription to kind of also drive upgrades. There's a bunch of ideas I think that hasn't been tried, but in generally, subscriptions is something that's happening across most industries because it creates recurring revenue streams. So, when you go on a trip, that's it from A to B. But what is your opportunity of selling an option to maybe go on a continuous amount of trips, maybe 4 tickets a year? So you go on a trip every quarter. Is that something you could just create some experiences around? And then contact list, I think that is really key. Most of us don't really want to touch too many things. I think most people have been a little bit germaphobes now. So if I can go order things without having to pick up or touch something, that would be beneficial for me if I could leverage my own phone to do that versus using a screen or a piece of paper I have to touch. That would be really beneficial. I mean, one of those is when you go to the airport, you want to check in. I don't really want to go touch a check-in counter that everybody else has touched. I can do it all on my phone, so that's really nice. In addition to that, there's a lot of opportunity to sell around ancillaries. So it could be Wi-Fi on the flight. It could be late checkouts when you go to a hotel. And again, all this you want to do on a mobile phone, right? So we all walk around with a phone all the time. So the ability for you to manage your life on the phone is becoming more and more important. And then if we take a look at some of the use cases, I mentioned a couple of this, so I'll just drill into a couple of them. I think for the traditional commerce area, it is really just making sure you digitalize the whole experience end to end. So I can conduct a lot of this business self-service. This can also be guided, of course, but a lot of consumers today, they really just want to self-serve and conduct all that business online. And a lot of it they want to do on mobile. One interesting stat, though, is that most of this experience, like the buying of a journey, will come on your phone. It'll start on the mobile device, but a lot of traffic actually ends on the computer. So you might start researching and do a lot of things on your phone, and then you want to take that to your computer and finish that journey there. So both of those mobile and desktop experiences can be pretty important. And then with advanced personalization or even recommendations, you can drive the average order value up. Again, when you come and book an airline ticket, hey, can you sell an experience in there? Could you sell a car rental? Could you sell the hotel room? Are there other services or other products you could sell at the same time to drive up the average order value? And that's where kind of commerce helps you facilitate that. And then continually to kind of test it with A/B testing, ensure that you get the right reach. Social commerce is becoming more and more important because a lot of people start their whole research project on where they want to go on a vacation in different social channels. So having a presence there, being engaged there, and remove a lot of the friction in how you want to conduct that commerce experience is also important. So you want to really be there front and center where people are doing the research. So that also means like SEO and make sure that you show up is really key. And then guided selling is a great concept we're seeing across many different industries where you can take me down a path of saying, okay, you want to book your travel, you need a car, you need a hotel, you might need, an experience in a theme park, all depending on who I am. So this personalized guided selling experience that you can use artificial intelligence to kind of drive different journeys and take a buyer down a great path and have a great experience buying it. And then when you look at live chat or video capabilities, again, great opportunity to connect with the staff you might have because people are sitting digitally now. So they could also help with the live chat video capabilities, creating content that you can use in different channels. On the mobile side, again, a lot of content will be online, right? On access on the mobile phone. You can give people access to exclusive content, exclusive experiences. But you can also try to upsell and cross-sell as you go into that experience. So as I'm moving through my journey, on my travel journey, at any point in time, you could reach back into them, especially if you get the location data from your customers. Then you can say, okay, we have opportunities because you're now, for example, in Paris, so I can now upsell you an experience in Paris. So great opportunity to use the mobile aspect of it to continue to drive more business and again increase that value you can get out of your customer. And then why is Commerce Cloud, really relevant here? So we come with a massive experience from retail that feeds really well into the travel experience as well. It's a very flexible experience. So you can take Commerce Cloud, you can use like a template out of the box to just kind of click and deploy it, or you can build a fully headless experience. So if you want to custom build a full-on experience, you can do that, or you can combine that with kind of a specific like template that you can set up. So that makes it really fast to get up and running, and it also allows you to create very customized experiences. And then a big part of it is creating like this unified view of your customers. So you have all the data around it. So when a customer contacts you, the service agent or your sales agent have all the information they need at their fingertips. And that gives them the ability to service them at a great level and expect that like high level of service they can get. And then I think the Salesforce platform is really built on trust. That's a key pillar, key value for Salesforce is to have a platform that's always available, always up and running. And then with including all these AI capabilities that allows you to drive more personalization across the whole experience. And this might be an eye chart for some people here, but it's what we call like a architecture kind of diagram. And really what I just want to showcase here is that, it's built on a flexible platform that allows you to build any kind of experience you would be interested in building, whether that's a full-on travel site, whether it's a microsite. You might create one specifically. We just had the Euro Cup going on. You might want to build a micro experience just for selling experiences around like a football tournament. You might want to use a PWA kit, which is a progressive web application, to create a great site that is optimized for mobile experiences. And or you might go out in our partner ecosystem to pull in apps into that experience. So if you want to augment the experience, we have the App Exchange, which is very similar to a Google App Store, an iPhone, iOS App Store, where you can just take the apps that is pre-built and you can integrate that into the experience. So that could be a visualization of a travel experience, for example, or seeing all the seats in a plane or a bus. And this is like a flexible platform where you can pick and choose whatever you want from it. And lastly, I just want to talk about a couple of customers that we have seen in travel hospitality. A couple of them that stands out to me is, for example, signposts that are doing COVID testing. So when you're flying in and out of, for example, Heathrow, well, you can get a COVID test, on departure, when you land, and they built a whole system around that with Commerce Cloud. We got Gatwick, who used it for parking. So every time you want to pick a parking spot and pay for it, you can select the exact parking spot, take your car over there, do everything on mobile and get it done. And Malta is super interesting because they're selling not the plane tickets, but the ancillaries around it. So you want more leg room, you want to buy a meal, you want to buy other things around that travel experience. Well, they're using Salesforce Commerce Cloud for it. And then Samat is, they're creating a full-on travel marketplace that can cover all your needs when you're going to go to the Samat mountain. You can really buy anything from A to C, doing that whole experience on the mountain. So I can't wait to go skiing myself and try that out when they launch it. That's going to be pretty exciting. With that, I will probably pass it back to Alison if we have any questions now or later.
Cheers. Thanks, Rasmus. I think we're going to do some questions at the end.
Super.
Alrighty, I will share my screen. Okay, cool. Hopefully you all can see that. So again, my name is Allison. I'm from Branchspace, and I'm just going to take you through a deep dive of how we see what really should be the customer experience for 2021 and beyond. At this point, I think everyone in the travel industry is familiar with the importance of building a smarter travel retail experience. We're also very familiar with the brands who are top of mind when it comes to integrating personalization and contextualization tech within their storefronts. You know, the Amazons, the Airbnbs, Booking, the list goes on. Furthermore, we also know that the customer journey has been molded in reaction to the many phases of travel in the pandemic. Right now, booking windows are much shorter, or they started that way in the middle of the pandemic with Skyscanner data, and they've continued to show that 0 to 21 day as being very high. And a Booking.com survey also showed that 53% of travelers want tech options that make last minute reservations. What this really means is that travelers are both simultaneously more planned because they're very careful, but also more impulsive and opportunistic in their booking decisions. In this context, it matters much more how and when you sell to your customers. So what do customers want in 2021 and beyond? Firstly, it's all about the personalized experiences, not just the products, right? So I guess a quick definition, because we're going to refer to both areas, personalization and contextualization. So personalization refers to technology that tailors to the individual user, and contextualization speaks to technology that optimizes content based on the context of the user. So for example, personalization would be showing a product to a user based on their search history. That's very familiar. Contextualization would be showing a product to a user based on like their search parameters used in the booking flow, say like 2 adults, that kind of thing. The numbers have always really spoken for themselves in this area. Like according to Accenture, 91% of consumers are more likely to shop with brands who recognize, remember, and provide relevant offers and recommendations. However, user research conducted by Booking also found that customers can be quite unforgiving if this goes wrong, which is where it matters with the experience. So Booking had a series of personalization experiments that they ran that were failing. This was around destination recommendations and around hotel recommendations. And they found out that these experiments were failing largely because they weren't paying attention to the target user. They were showing customers travel destinations where the customer had already been there before and actually booked through Booking. They also were seeing users that had been searching for 2 adults and got the contextualization wrong because it wasn't, they started showing them hotel rooms for couples and they weren't actually booking as couples. So this kind of emphasizes why it's important to keep your CDP and dynamic presentation platform intertwined, and highlights really why contextualization and personalization should be treated separately. But we'll kind of return to that a bit later. The second area that customers want, limitless but not overwhelming choices. So with today's world, customers really expect optimized lists. They want the perception of choice, but not to be bogged down in overwhelming options, right? So we need to really surface for the user what they want using personalization, contextualization, and other technologies in order to keep that user's attention and keep them on our sites. Finally, mobile is perhaps even more important than ever, right? So desktop did increase during the pandemic, and that's always true, but we have to keep in mind that we have a younger generation of travelers that are rising through the ranks, and we can kind of see this or the importance of this if we turn our attention to the social giants. So Instagram has shopping embedded within platform, and Twitter announced in June or July that they were also going to go for the same kind of shopping experience. So this emphasis on the mobile experience both shows us the impulsiveness of the 2021 consumer, as well as points out another subtle point. If the rest of your marketing platforms will consistently point towards mobile, you need to make sure that your mobile experience is one-to-one with your desktop and allows for that kind of seamless integration. So what does this mean for your digital experience? Good question, right? So shuffling things around here, here we go. Let's walk through an ideal customer journey in 2021. Starting from the moment a user lands on your website, there's an opportunity to change how the user experiences your site. Say, for example, that you know either from previous search history or from use of an onboarding or personalization flow that your user takes a lot of short city breaks and holidays. You could show destination recommendations and flight deals for a user to go to a city like Madrid. Alternatively, say that your user likes to go out hiking and backpacking and that sort of thing. You change that experience then to show them the wilderness trips, the ones that take them out to the mountains. When a user actually runs a flight search on your site, they could be shown flights that suit their travel preferences. Perhaps they're a traveler that takes the same routine trip, right? You don't want them to have to sort through your entire list of schedules just to figure out the couple of days at the same time that they really want to take and get that flight. Instead, you want to surface that usual Saturday flight at the top of the flight schedule. Alternatively, you could have a user that prefers a cheaper flight, right? And they're constantly searching for that. You don't also want to have them searching through the list constantly. You need to pull that out and surface it higher from the schedule. So branded fares are another opportunity area, and I'm going to hand over here to Radu to explain how we see these working and the ways to really optimize them.
Thanks, Alison. Hey, everyone. Just a quick word on fare brands and how they can be optimized. So most airlines by now have evolved beyond the old style fare families, which were effectively groups of booking classes of RBDs. Most established airlines have nowadays a matrix structure of multiple fare brands mapped across all the booking classes or RBDs within a given cabin. However, for the vast majority of airlines, this is still predominantly predominantly a very static set of fare brands that is offered to everyone. And I would say the maximum amount of differentiation and adaptation to the customer's needs and preferences that most airlines would offer in this respect is just increasing that set of static fare brands that is offered to everyone in the hope that you can offer so many. And in the most extreme case that I'm aware of, I know one major airline that is offering 13 fare brands for every flight, at least every intercontinental flight, in the hope that amongst those up to 13, or who knows, there might be even more in some cases out there, there will be something suitable for that customer. But offering 13 fare brands is a horrible user experience, and it really creates conversion problems and usability problems. People will be overwhelmed by that amount of choice. Even just reading through the differences between 13 fare brands across 4 cabins, incidentally, is quite a task, and it's not what most customers are interested to do when they're in a booking flow. So the way we see this evolving in the future, and this is not just let's say pure speculation on our part. It's we are doing active work with some of our airline clients to make this happen, to define how it will work and make it happen. But we see two scenarios, or two maybe scenarios, two stages in this evolution. Firstly, as a medium-term evolution, we feel that the number of fare brands that an airline can offer for a specific route is actually going to further increase. However, instead of just offering the same set of fare brands to everyone indiscriminately, we see the appearance of application of machine learning algorithms and rule-based algorithms that will select a subset of those fare brands to be offered to a specific customer, primarily based on their context. And I'm going to come back a bit later to show exactly how this could work. So effectively, an airline could have 20, maybe even 30 different fare brands, some different brands targeted to different personas or types of customers, but not all of them would be offered to everyone. We would be using an algorithmic approach to determine which of those 20, 30 fare brands are relevant to show to a customer and select only 3 to maybe 5 of them for a specific customer to choose from. The longer term evolution that we see, and it is definitely, I would say, an order of magnitude more complex and more sophisticated than this technique, would be to go towards completely automated and real-time generation and pricing of unique fare brands for each individual user and for each individual search. And this is not actually as far-fetched as it may sound. Again, there is active work being done in this area. I'm not aware of anybody doing it in production today, but there is serious interest and well, I guess research done in this direction. So we would expect to start seeing the first examples within the next 2 to 3 years, where a user initiates a search and they will get perhaps some static fare brands, but also 1 or 2 fare brand offers, which are completely real-time generated, constructed on the fly, based on well, both contextualization parameters as well as personalization parameters. So I'm going to stop here now and come back to this point a bit later. So Alison, for now, back to you.
Thanks, Radu. Okay. So you can also contextualize your ancillaries in dynamic bundles. Here we've got this weekend getaway bundle. So your customers can really, with a bundle, get the most out of your ancillary offerings. This bundling could be further optimized with a machine learning backed dynamic pricing model that further optimizes the bundle price per user context. So say, for example, instead of a weekend bundle, you've got business travelers, so they might want Wi-Fi access, lounge access, even a cocktail. You know, it's probably great to drink when you're going on a strenuous business trip. Here, it's really about making 1,000 tiny cuts to inflate that margin. Now, something, I think I skipped a slide. Yeah. So once you know where your traveler is flying to, you can show them more products for their trips from your ancillary partners in an online store as well. So such as duty-free items that they'd want to pick up the gates from you. So this passenger is going to the Bahamas and the airlines decided to recommend like a snorkel kit, suntan lotion, skin cream, all the tiny things that they would have forgotten about anyways, and will see you ultimately as this great travel provider for surfacing this stuff for them. Then something that's a bit more familiar to everyone in the room as well is price alerts, right? So price alerts, I guess I should say, augmenting shopping cart recovery. The way that we think about this traditionally is maybe a bit old hat and outdated right now because of the pandemic and how consumer behavior has changed. In another survey, the way that we think in another survey, 74% of travelers surveyed thought that the airlines needed to offer more flexible tickets. But as an alternative, we can use price alerts to really funnel towards different functionality that enable that flexibility. And that flexibility can be achieved with functionality such as like a book now, pay later approach, or increasing the time to leave. And the combination of having that funnel over really lets you target your users more effectively instead of taking a blanket approach and just allowing everyone to do this. It's a much smarter approach to flexibility without sacrificing the airline. So today's travelers really are unique, right? They expect a more personalized shopping experience, and with the younger generations, it's going to continue to go that way because it echoes their retail experiences elsewhere. They're also going to continue to engage more positively with brands who personalize and contextualize properly and punish those who don't. I think as well, that gives us the opportunity to expand out this personalization to other areas and adopt that more of an all-around travel agency approach. Specifically by, instead of just showing all of your hotels or offers from Expedia and Booking, you take those products and you show for a couple the perfect kind of activities that they'd want to do together. So camping and light chasing night tour. But for a family, in the meantime, you could show them something somewhat different, right? You could show a family like a hiking adventure or a trip to the aquarium and surface these products at the end of your booking flow. So ultimately there, you become the travel agent for your consumer. And that in turn, kind of going back to Rasmus's point that he was making earlier, will increase loyalty and keep the customer attached to you. So with that, I'm going to pass back over to Radu to take you through how this works, both from more of a technical perspective and from Branchspace's perspective. Radu?
Thanks, Alison. So my next and last part of this webinar will be focusing on how some of these really amazing use cases that Alison has presented can be achieved in reality. So before I go into that, I just wanted to say a couple of words about Triplake, because you are going to see some references to Triplake. Triplake is our own Branchspace's digital commerce platform for airlines. We have developed this over the past 4 years. And in the next couple of slides, we will show you how Triplake and Salesforce together can work, and through their powers combined, we can achieve quite some impressive results. And Triplake has essentially 6 major components. It's basically a suite of airline digital commerce solutions, which includes a website portal, main booking flow, ancillaries retailing, managed booking flow, check-in component, and mobile native app. So with this being said, Alison, if we can go to the next slide, please. So I was referring earlier to dynamic fare brands and how fare brands can be, let's say, a more diverse and better tailored set of fare brands can be offered to customers. I have illustrated here in a simple flow how this could be achieved for the first of the 2 use cases I've referred to earlier. So where you have a wider set, let's say 30 different fare brands predefined, all static and predefined. But yeah, a significantly larger number of them than any airline would be offering today on a given route. And just extracting a subset of those, and ideally, obviously, the most relevant of those 30 to be offered to a specific, to every specific customer and for every specific search. So in a way, all this is actually, in this case, orchestrated by Triplake, namely in this example by our booking engine or main booking flow component, which would have, and actually does have, a tag deployed in it, which would allow a customer data platform, like, for example, Salesforce Customer 360, to collect data from the flow on all the searches and bookings that customers would make. So the flow in this case would start with a customer who makes a flight search on Triplake. We would be fetching, first and foremost, we would be fetching flight offers in the form of a set of fare brands from the airline's fare shopping engine. And typically, in the case of having so many different fare brands, actually the airline's merchandising engine plays an essential role, because typically the fare shopping engine would just return the filed fares, whether they are filed in ATPCO or generated by, let's say, more sophisticated real-time pricing engine. And then they are augmented and turned into bundles or fare brands through the help of the airline's merchandising engine, which in this case would be a third-party system. Then the merchandising engine would return to Triplake this extensive, comprehensive set of up to, let's say, 30 different static fare brands. at which point Triplake would have to go to Customer 360, to Salesforce Customer 360 to determine the persona of that specific customer based on the customer's context. So Customer 360 would do what we would call a persona calculation. That persona calculation would then be transferred to our Triplake rules engine, and then Triplake would use the persona to filter out of those 30 fair brands that came from a merchandising engine, to filter out the majority of them, leaving, let's say, 4 or 5 which are deemed based on our based on the persona calculation as the most relevant for this specific primarily this specific context, because this is more of an example of contextualization than actual personalization. And then that subset of fair brands would be displayed to the customer. And all this can happen quite quickly. We are talking about maybe 1 or 2 seconds to get from a search, from flight search to a returned set of optimized fair brands and flight results. Why I'm saying that this is primarily a contextualized and not so much a personalized use case, it's primarily because when it comes to fair brand and flight selection, we find, and I think most of the airline experts here are well aware of that, the same individual customer can have a very different behavior depending on the context in which they find themselves. For example, if you make a booking just for yourself for a business trip, you will tend to have a very different behavior and a very different way of looking at the flights and fair brands than if you book a holiday for yourself and your family. Therefore, we find that in general, when it comes to fair brand offering, contextualization optimization logic is actually more helpful than personalization, let's say individual personalization. Can we go to the next slide, please, Alison? Thanks. So the next use case is a real personalization use case. Alison touched upon it earlier. It's about making personalized destination recommendations to a user. It's a slightly more complicated flow, but it starts again with a user using the airline's digital channels, in this case powered by Triplake and our website portal component, as well as our booking engine or main booking flow component, to look at various destinations, make searches and bookings. All the data that is collected from those flows, again, would be fed into Salesforce Customer 360. And in this case, we would be using that information both to determine what are the specific interests and the specific behavior of an individual user. So, for example, which destinations they have looked at in the past, which destinations they've booked and flown to in the past. And then this would be determined by comparing that with aggregated data collected from all the users across all the different sessions. We can make a calculation, something like a propensity calculation, to determine what are the most likely destinations to be offered as recommendations or suggestions to a customer. And going back to the example of booking.com that Alison referred to earlier, and how they got it wrong by offering the same destination to customers even after they had already visited the destination and booked through booking.com. The whole point of storing this information in Customer 360 and then in the Salesforce CRM, where we would keep a history of each individual user's searches and bookings, would be to remove from the list of recommended destinations any destination to which they have already flown in the past, right? So it doesn't make sense to keep recommending Malta, for example, to a user if they've already flown there and we have this information about them. So in this case, the flow would go through 360 to look at also at what other similar users have searched for, using a specific user's history of bookings and searches. And then based on that, the Triplake rules engine can determine what are the most likely destinations or the most relevant destinations to be offered to a customer. Obviously, all this is, and I don't want to make this sound more than it is a probabilistic determination. It is not something that we can determine with 100% certainty that a user will be interested in these destinations, but we can increase the probability of showing relevant recommendations and results quite significantly by keeping all this data in mind. And yeah, then of course we would generate a personalized variant, for example, of a website portal homepage and display that to the user. And Alison, can we go to the last slide, please? Thanks. So the last use case I wanted to show is also quite an interesting one, because it's actually a combination of both personalization and contextualization, and it's technically it is probably one of the more complex ones. So the idea here would be the use case here is to offer a customer who has already made a flight booking or is in the process of making a flight booking, and we know the parameters of that flight booking, and we want to offer that customer the most relevant ancillary products and packages or bundles of ancillaries on top of their fare brand, given their context. So I'm saying that it's both a personalization and contextualization use case because the actual offer optimization would be primarily a matter of contextualization. However, in this case, we are looking to use that optimized offer not only inside a booking flow, but also in all the airline's marketing channels, and sales channels. So the example here starts with a user, and we are assuming that it is a registered user. And in this case, this is quite relevant because we need to recognize them and be able to identify them deterministically, not probabilistically, in order to distribute that optimized offer to that customer across all channels, both on-site, let's say the airline's owned direct channels as well as third-party channels. If and when the user is recognized and we have the details of their booking or flight search, that's when we can get the how shall I call it, vanilla or baseline offering of ancillary products from the airline's merchandising engine. We mustn't forget that this system still exists and it must be used for such a case. But then it goes through our rules engine, and again using a persona calculation or propensity calculation based on in this case Salesforce Customer 360. We would create a curated or optimized ancillary offering. And then this optimized ancillary offering can be distributed back into our booking flow for the initial booking, or in our Manage My Booking flow, or to the airline's homepage, where we can display a teaser or a prompt for the user to add ancillaries to their booking or in the check-in flow. But at the same time, through the customer data platform, through Customer 360, it can also be distributed to a whole range of non-airline owned channels, including, for example, your email marketing provider. Well, okay, this is debatable. This could be argued that it's still owned by the airline, but we are also talking here about search marketing. We are talking about display advertising and social marketing. So the same ancillary, you could effectively chase your customer with offers, with personalized and optimized offers throughout their entire digital journey, both on your own channels as well as on third-party channels. Thanks, Alison. Back to you.
Thanks, Radu. I'll just take myself off mute. So thank you guys for all joining us today. I just want to highlight a few of who's been speaking. So we're Branchspace. We offer Triplake, which is a digital commerce platform, that multi-channel and multifaceted solution really that helps enable airlines to contextualize their digital experience in new and exciting ways. And we were joined today by Salesforce as well. You heard Rasmus speak at first. So they offer, I'm sure you're more than familiar, customer data and end-to-end solutions for Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Customer 360. And because, of course, two companies can't really talk together sometimes, we have Spin Up Digital here as well on the call. They're a key integration partner that enables airlines really to succeed in building these next level storefronts. So with that all being said, I want to thank Rasmus for speaking and pass over to everyone for questions. You can direct to myself or Radu if you have questions on contextualization, or to Salesforce or spin up. We have Michael on the call as well, so I'm sure he'd be happy to feedback as well. But with that, we'll take your questions if you have any. And by questions, you can pop them in chat or take yourself off mute and feel free to talk to us.
It seems everything was exceedingly clear.
That'd be a first.
We have a question from Rafael related to GDS distribution, if I understand correctly. Rafael,
Yep.
Is that right? How do we integrate this with the GDS distribution for the, yeah. Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer to that. At the moment, I mean, it was only still fairly recently that GDSs have added support for static fare brands. So adding support for dynamic fare brands within the GDS, I'm not sure how and when that might happen. I think the answer that I would like to give to your question, and it may not be the answer that you're expecting, but my suggestion would be to forget about GDS distribution and switch your indirect distribution to digital channels which do support distribution of dynamic fare brands like NDC. And I think some of you may be aware that there is actually a recent initiative coordinated by ATPCO together with a number of airlines and major airline distribution providers in the US, which has defined an approach for travel agents, well, for online travel agents, I should specify, to provide a very, how shall I put it, a comparative view of different airlines fare brands, but which would enable an apples to apples comparison of those fare brands. So because the classical problem on an OTA is that you see one offer from one airline for $100 and another one from another airline for $800, and it's not actually very clear it's not immediately clear to the customer which one is better and why. They just see the price, but they don't see what you get with those two different offers and widely different prices. So the initiative that I'm referring to provides a proof of concept to showcase different flight offers, fare based on fare brands from different airlines in a way that makes it very visually accessible to the user to understand not only the differences in prices, but also the differences in the products that they are offered. And all this is made possible through NDC. So yeah, long answer short, I would say through GDS, we don't see it as a very likely development, but through NDC, it is extremely possible and it is happening already.
I think we've got another 3 questions, Rowdy, if you want
to. Yeah, thanks, Istok, for the next question on A/B testing. So we are actually looking at A/B testing in 2 different ways. Our platform supports A/B testing done at UI level through integration of, essentially any third-party A/B testing tool where you manipulate the DOM, the document object model, to create different variants of the experience for the customers, and then test which one works better. So this is certainly possible, and we do that. However, this comes with certain limitations, because I'm sure that as those of you who have done this on complex airline booking flows, or to be honest, complex transactional flows of any kind, it's not like airlines are special in this respect. There are many changes to flows which are quite difficult to handle through UI or front-end manipulation through the manipulation of the DOM through JavaScript. So for those use cases, we have the additional ability to configure variants through our backend, so through our integration layer, and run A/B tests, not multivariant yet, but just A/B tests. And when I say A/B, I mean A, B, C, D. It doesn't. We are not limited to only 2 variants. It can be however many variants, but it's not multivariant testing. But we have the ability to configure such A/B testing with N variants at a much deeper level than through what is feasible to do just with JavaScript manipulation of the DOM. So we can actually alternate product offerings, so all have different variants of product offerings displayed to different customers. We haven't done pricing testing so far. We have the technical ability to do it, but we feel that pricing testing is something quite tricky and sensitive. So you as an airline, you need to be quite courageous to do that. But we have looked at at offer optimization variants. We have done flight sorting variants. We have done also one thing that I should say about Triplake is Triplake is not designed to be an out-of-the-box static UI. Like most, especially most of the very established airline IT technology providers like Amadeus and Sabre would provide. Triplake works a bit like a box of Lego bricks, where you have a collection of UI components, React components in our case, which can be optimized and tied together into screens, and then the screens into flows through business rules. So we have the ability to create highly customized UIs and flows through, well, it's not necessarily a visual flow of business rules, but it's all manageable through rules. And we can, for example, apply A/B testing to that. So to give you an example, we have the ability for some of the most fundamental UI components of a booking flow. We have several different variants. So for example, we have the ability to show the flight selection screen and the flight selection table, where you see all the different flight offers. We have several different variants of that. We can show it with the option to select outbound and inbound flights on the same screen or on separate screens, because some airlines prefer to split it into 2 steps. Other airlines prefer to have it all in 1 step. We also have the ability to show all the fare brands side by side from the beginning, or to show fare brands only once you've selected a cabin. So if, for example, an airline wants to expose, let's say, 5 or more fare brands to a customer, that's very difficult to do just by showing 5 columns next to each other. So in such a case, we would ask the user first to click on a cabin, like economy or premium economy or business, and then underneath we have an expand collapse which shows the actual fare brands. So, and all this is controllable through, let's say, backend configured A/B testing. I hope that answers your question. And I think we also have one last question from Vinit. I think Alison and Rasmus, I will actually leave you guys to answer this one, because I actually need to drop off. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, Radu. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, that way I don't expose anyone's names here. Okay. Vinit, do you have a tool to measure opportunity loss due to incorrect optimized options provided to packs? That's a very good question. Honestly, Rowdy would probably be the best person to answer that question. Currently at Triplake, we don't, but it is in process. It's not technically in production. It's just in process from us. Let me see if we have any other questions. Okay, I think it's actually 2 o'clock, guys, so we're gonna keep things consistent and let you get back to your daily activities. But I'll take a recording of all the notes in the chat and the questions that we haven't answered, and I'll respond directly to you. So thank you all. Really appreciate your time today. You'll also see your recording sent to your email as well.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.